The sun was setting over Maplewood, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. I stood on the porch of my childhood home, the peeling white paint chipping away like memories I tried to forget. The air was thick with the scent of lilacs blooming in the garden, a sweet aroma that twisted my stomach into knots. My name is Clara Holloway, and I came back to this town after years of running, searching for something I thought I lost forever. But as the light faded and the shadows stretched, a different truth emerged. There were some things I could never escape, and one of them was the thirst for revenge. My heart pounded in my chest as I took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze against my skin. The wind carried with it whispers of the past, the laughter of friends that turned to betrayal, the promise of love crushed under the weight of lies. I could almost hear his voice, smooth and charming, always so convincing. "Clara, you know I would never hurt you," he'd said, eyes glinting like the sharp blade of a knife. But he had, and in the most brutal way. I had thought I could forgive him. I had thought time would heal my wounds. But now I knew better. I needed to make him hurt the way he made me hurt. I stepped off the porch and onto the cracked sidewalk. Each step felt heavy, like I was walking through quicksand, dragging with me the memories of that night. I had watched, helpless and broken, as Liam laughed with my best friend, Sarah, as if I did not exist. Their betrayal burned in my chest like acid, and even now, years later, I felt the hot sting of tears hovering just beneath the surface. I would not cry today, though. Today was about something far more potent than sorrow. Today was about justice, my justice. "Clara, is that you?" A voice pierced through my thoughts, pulling me away from my dark reverie. I turned to see Mrs. Lindgren, the woman who had lived next door for as long as I could remember. Her hair was a wild halo of white, and she squinted at me from behind an oversized pair of glasses. "I almost didn't recognize you. You've changed so much." "Mrs. Lindgren," I replied, forcing a smile that felt tight as I clutched my hands together. "Yes, it has been a long time." She shuffled closer, an old chihuahua trailing behind her, dragging an assortment of squeaky toys. "You were just a little girl the last time I saw you. Such a sweet girl. What brings you back? Are you here to stay?" Her eyes sparkled with hope, as if my return would bring life back to the neighborhood. I hesitated, glancing toward the end of the street where I knew they lived, Liam and Sarah, blissfully unaware of the storm that brewed within me. "I needed a change, I guess," I said finally, unsure if I was lying or telling the truth. "Well, it's lovely to have you back." She beamed, then frowned slightly, sensing the tension in the air. I heard what happened with Liam and Sarah. I'm so sorry, dear. That must have been terribly hard for you." A part of me wanted to take her hand and spill all of the pain swirling within me, to scream about the injustice and the hurt. But I held my tongue, forcing another smile as images of them together burned in my mind, shadows of their bodies entwined as they laughed over my shattered trust. "Thank you, Mrs. Lindgren." "I appreciate it, really." I forced the words out, my throat tight. I would not let her see how much it still hurt. "Well, you must come over for tea. I make the best blueberry scones," she exclaimed, her excitement palpable. "Maybe another time," I said, stepping back slightly, the need to distance myself from the memories of warmth and comfort overwhelming. I could hear laughter echoing faintly from a nearby house, the sound of my former life, and it made my skin crawl. "Oh, darling, promise me you'll stay in touch," she called after me as I began to walk away. I waved back, but I barely heard her over the pounding of my heart. I had come back to Maplewood not just to linger in the past, but to ignite a plan of revenge that had been simmering for too long beneath my skin. I could not afford to get lost in nostalgia now. I walked toward the center of town, where I had spent countless summers, the air thick with the sound of children playing and the clinking of glasses in the cafe just ahead. It felt strange to think of that place, where I had imagined a future filled with happiness. Now it was a shrine to betrayal, a monument of what could have been had trust remained unbroken. The cafe was bustling, nearly unrecognizable since the last time I had visited. I pushed through the door, a wave of warmth washing over me as the scent of coffee lured me closer. My eyes scanned the room, landing on familiar faces. They sat at one of the tables by the window, laughing and chatting as if their world had not been shattered. Liam's laughter sprung forth like the remain of a sinister melody, while Sarah sat close, her hand timidly brushing against his. I felt the familiar flames of anger igniting within me, spurring me forward as I approached. "Clara." Sarah's voice rang out, her surprise mingled with something else. Was it guilt? I wondered as she stood to greet me, a flicker of unease crossing her face. "Liam." I nodded at him, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Nice to see you again." "Clara, wow, it's been, what, 5 years?" he replied, leaning back in his chair, a smug smile playing on his lips as if I were no more than a fleeting memory. Yes, time flies, I said, each word coated in sugar but loaded with poison. My heart raced as I fought the urge to lash out, to expose their betrayal right there amidst the clattering dishes and chattering customers. We were just talking about you, Sarah said, her voice high-pitched and a bit too upbeat. It feels so strange seeing you again after all this time. Really? I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms over my chest, the bitterness boiling just beneath the surface. I thought it might be a little awkward considering everything. Liam shifted uncomfortably in his seat, and a brief flash of uncertainty crossed his face. You know, Clara, that was a long time ago. Water under the bridge, we were young and stupid. Stupid, huh? I retorted, fighting to keep my voice steady. Is that how you would describe lying to someone you called a best friend? My heart raced, every nerve ending on fire. I could feel my pulse echoing in my ears as I leaned in closer, a predatory glimmer in my eyes. Or does stupid really just mean you both have the backbone of a jellyfish? Clara, please, Sarah started, her voice trembling. Save it, I interjected, feeling stronger as I spoke, each word pushing my resolve higher. I'm not here for a reconciliation. I just want to know how it feels to move on so easily. Was it worth it? The last word hung in the air, a challenge that turned cold. I could see their facades cracking, realization dawning in their eyes. Liam laughed awkwardly. You've all moved on, Clara. Maybe you should too. Move on, I repeated, my voice rising with intensity. You think this is about me moving on? This is about deceit, betrayal, and the lengths I'm willing to go to make sure you both understand what you did. You don't just hurt someone and get away with it. Trust me, I have plans. Their expressions twisted from disbelief to unease, a flicker of fear lighting their eyes. I could almost taste the satisfaction as it clawed to the surface, yet it wasn't enough. They needed to know the consequences of their betrayal. What I wanted now was more than just an apology or some hollow reconciliation. I wanted them to feel the weight of their choices. The air around us thickened, each second elongating as I leaned closer, letting the tension wrap around us like a tightening grip. Clara, Sarah stammered, her bravado wavering. We can talk about this. No, we can't. I straightened up, taking a step back and letting their nervous glances wash over me like rain. You had your chance to talk, and you threw it away. Now you'll have to face the storm you created, one I'm more than ready to unleash. I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving them sputtering behind me. With each step, the flames of revenge burned hotter within me. Maplewood had been a quaint little town then, but for me, it was no longer just a backdrop. It was a battlefield, and I was its warrior. I could feel the electricity crackling around me, telling me that this was just the beginning. My heart raced with excitement and fear mixed together, knowing that I would not rest until I had righted the wrongs that had been done to me. I would take my time, plan my moves carefully. After all, every good revenge story requires the perfect timing. And I was prepared to right mine. I stood in the dim light of my kitchen, a single bulb hanging overhead, casting a yellow glow over the chipped linoleum floor. I could still smell the fragrant, lingering aroma of the roasted chicken from dinner, but it clashed with the heavy stench of impending revenge that swirled in my mind. I leaned against the counter, my fingers drumming nervously against the cold surface, my heart racing as thoughts of my sister, Lily, echoed in my mind. Those foolish, piercing green eyes that shimmered with malice whenever she walked past me. Lily was the spark that started my fire, the reason I had begun to plot every move to get back at those who trod on my heart, particularly her. Mom, can you put on the news? They're doing a special about that guy who stole from you at the store, I said, trying to sound casual, but even I could hear the tremor in my voice. It was ridiculous how tight my chest felt at the mere reminder of Eric, that thief with a charming smile, and his betrayal tearing away the fabric of my family. The news program didn't just relive that memory, it reignited the flames of anger that had been simmering beneath my surface. Mom shuffled into the living room, her tired eyes darting to me before she plopped onto the worn sofa, remote in hand. Sure thing, sweetie. Her voice was soft, underlying worry wrapped in layers of love. You know he's in jail, right? Yeah, but who knows how long he'll stay there, right? I just want to see them remind everyone what he did, I replied, biting down on my lower lip as frantic thoughts raced in my mind. What I really wanted was to plan my next steps. Eric hadn't just wronged us, he had shattered our world. Clara, honey, don't dwell on it too much. You have your own life to think about, she said, her words responding to my internal storm. Focus on your job, your friends. Mom, you don't understand. I yelled, frustration spilling out like a broken dam. My life feels incomplete after what that jerk did. It's not just about the money, it's about everything. It's the principle of betrayal. He has to pay. As I shouted, I could see Mom cringe. The news anchor's voice droned on in the background, showing a police car that looked so much like the one that had parked outside our house that day, lights flashing, time had blurred under the weight of rage and humiliation. Mom, do you think we can ever get that money back? I asked, suddenly vulnerable, wishing for her reassurance, her strong voice to wrap around my fears. We might not get the actual money back, but we can try to move on, Clara. Some people don't deserve your energy, she sighed. Life has its way of exposing the truth, and people pay for what they do, trust me. Her voice softened like a warm blanket wrapped around me, but even that warmth failed to soothe the dark storm brewing inside. I shook my head vigorously, trying to dispel her well-meaning advice. No, Mom, I need to do something. He has no idea what he started. He has no idea how much I want to make him feel what we felt. At that moment, a flicker of excitement surged through me, and then, like a light switch, a plan began to form. Clara? My mom's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. What do you mean? Are you planning something? Her apprehensive eyes searched mine, and I masked my brewing intentions behind a stoic expression. I just think it is time to confront him once he gets out. I want him to realize that things don't just end when you're behind bars. Consequences still hang around like a shadow. My voice trembled with the blood pulsing through my veins as the vision of everything I could do flashed before my eyes. Maybe it was madness, what I was thinking, but there was clarity in the chaos, a light illuminating the darkness of vengeance that had poisoned my heart. Clara, please, you don't have to get involved. Let the police deal with it, Mom said, caution lacing her tone. No, I have to. My voice softened, betraying the ferocious intent within me. I need him to know that he can't get away with this. I need him to feel everything I feel at every moment. I have to make him understand. Frustration burned in my chest at every word, and when the news cut to footage of Eric standing handcuffed outside, I swore I saw the same smirk on his face that he wore when he had stolen what was ours. I shook my head, the knot in my stomach twisting tighter as I gripped the counter harder. He shouldn't be smirking, he should be terrified, I hissed under my breath. Clara, please, think about what you're saying, my mother cautioned, her worry palpable. You don't want to end up hurting yourself in the process. But those words pierced through me only lightly as the embers of my plan heated with fury. I needed to act. Eric would soon be walking free, and I had to find a way to take control, dig deep into his life, and exploit it. As the news ticked by with monotonous updates, I began spinning threads of ideas, tracing the outline of what came next. Mom, I'll be fine. I promise I'm not going to do anything reckless. I tried to assure her, but I could see doubt clouding her eyes. Perhaps she thought I was being naive, or perhaps it was the fear that her daughter, her sensitive little girl, would dive into darkness. I just want him to know how it feels. Mom sighed heavily. Just please be careful, okay? You are still my daughter, and I want you to be safe. Her voice trembled with concern, and guilt washed over me, mixing with the anger, remembering the love she poured into every word. All right, I will be. I promised, though I knew my truth lay much deeper than what I revealed. I walked towards the living room window. The night had encased Maplewood in a blanket of anxiety, the kind of suffocating quiet that enveloped you when something stormy loomed just beyond sight. Shadows danced outside. Cars passed, but in the dark asphalt glow, I pictured Eric tangled in my web of manipulation, feeling the essence of remorse settle painfully in his gut. It wouldn't be long until his bravado was stripped bare, leaving him exposed and vulnerable before me. I had to act, and I needed a plan. The flickering of the television in the background seemed to sync in rhythm with my heartbeat as I imagined the ways to dismantle his life piece by piece. Each betrayal, I recounted painted visions in my mind, catching glimpses of his hidden secrets, cornering him until he felt the weight of what he had done. The same way he slyly detected our vulnerabilities and exploited them, I would now become the spider spinning my captivating trap. Mom, do you think people ever really learn? I asked after a pause, casting a sideways glance, knowing somehow that these thoughts were not of the normal variety ones she would hear. She looked lost for a moment, her fingers playing with the remote absent-mindedly. People sometimes change when they hit rock bottom, she said finally, her gaze unfocused as if she were navigating through her own memories. But sometimes it takes a long while. I nodded, allowing those words to pour over me, like the sweet drizzle of syrup on a stack of warm pancakes. Perhaps we were not so different. Eric and I too had hit my rock bottom, and like him, I was ready to claw my way back to the surface, but my path would be littered with the remnants of his downfall. A sudden idea sparked like a firework. I could dig deeper, find out everything and anything about him, his life, the people around him. I had friends who could help, tech-savvy friends who could pull threads from the digital tapestry of his life. Each thread would lead me closer to the nexus of his existence, a twisted labyrinth I would navigate to find his heart and tighten my grip around it until he begged for forgiveness. "Mom, leave the news on a bit longer, will you?" I said, already retreating to my thoughts as excitement crackled up my spine. "Okay, Clara." She turned the volume up, the sound of the newscaster echoing in the walls while I focused, my mind whirling with ambition. "Just don't forget what I said about being careful." "Of course not." I felt the determination surge, a new sense of purpose guiding my heart into the vast, dark unknown of revenge. Again, the shadows outside flickered beneath the streetlights, unnoticed by the outside world. As the program went on, only one thing rang true in my mind. I was ready to unleash my plan, and I would not stop until I took back every piece of my life that had burned away, all because of someone who thought they could walk away scot-free. Unbeknownst to them, their world was about to collide with mine, and when it did, I would be waiting, smiling as I reveled in the chaos that followed. For in this dance of revenge, it was time for me, Clara Holloway, to take the lead. I stood in front of the dark wood door, my heart pounding like a drum in a marching band. The faint scent of damp earth and pine wrapped around me like an old cloak, grounding me in the moment. This was the moment that had been building for weeks, the moment when I would confront the ghosts of my past. I swallowed hard, the taste of anxiety bitter on my tongue. House loomed before me, a relic from my childhood, its faded blue siding peeling like the memories I had tried so hard to bury. It was time to face what I had been avoiding: my childhood home, my father, and the pain they represented. I raised my hand and knocked, the sound echoing in the still air as if it was calling my father back from the depths of his own demons. I could feel my heart racing, thrumming against my ribs as I waited, the anticipation mingling uneasily with anger. Would he remember me? Would he even care? I clenched my fists at my sides. "He better," I whispered under my breath, my voice barely escaping my lips. I was ready to make him remember how much he hurt me. The door creaked open, revealing a shadowed figure behind it. "Clara," my father's voice came, a mix of surprise and confusion. His face was older than I remembered, the lines etched deep into his skin, a map of mistakes and regrets. I hesitated for a moment, my anger mixing with an unexpected wave of vulnerability. "Yeah, it's me," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "Can I come in?" His eyes widened slightly before he stepped to the side, allowing me to enter. The familiar scent of stale coffee and dust clung to the air inside the house, mixing with something more pungent, something I couldn't quite place. "Wow, it's been a long time," he said as he closed the door behind me. "It has," I replied, stepping into the small living room that felt half familiar, like an old photograph that had faded with time. The furniture was worn, the couch sagging in the middle like my father's presence in my life. I thought it was time to stop ignoring things. My father ran a hand through his thinning hair, his nervous gestures making me feel both powerful and uneasy. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You know what I mean, Dad. Clara, please, sit down." "We can talk about this," he interrupted, a note of desperation creeping into his voice. There was something about the way he spoke that reminded me of the powerless child I used to be, waiting for love that never came. It made me furious, but I took a seat on the edge of the couch, my heart still racing. "I want to talk about why you disappeared," I said, my voice steadier now, my resolve hardening like steel. "You left us. You left me." His face fell, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of shame before he replaced it with an expression I had learned to recognize: defensiveness. "Life got complicated, Clara. I was struggling. You have to understand." "Complicated? You mean you chose alcohol over your family? You chose that filthy bar over us?" I shot back, the bitterness rising like bile in my throat. The air felt charged, thickening with the weight of unspoken words and long-buried truths. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding my gaze, the shadow of guilt hanging over him like a dark cloud. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You thought what? That disappearing would fix everything?" I interrupted, my voice cracking under the pressure of my pent-up anger and sadness. "You left me to pick up the pieces, Dad. You chose yourself over your own daughter." "Clara, please," he pleaded, his eyes finally meeting mine. "I made mistakes that I can't take back. I thought if I got my life together, if I could just escape for a while, I thought maybe what, that I would forget?" I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, frustration spilling over. "I've spent more than half my life trying to forget you ever existed. Do you know how hard that has been?" I know it's been tough, but I'm here now. Can't we just move past this? No, we can't just move past it. I slammed my palm against my leg. You can't just decide to re-enter my life and pretend like nothing has happened. You hurt me, and I'm tired of pretending that it doesn't matter. Clara, please, don't do this to me, he said, his voice trembling now as he tried to keep his composure. I could see the flicker of fear in his eyes, and it filled me with a twisted sense of satisfaction. Why should I care how this makes you feel? You never thought about my feelings when you shoved me aside like I was nothing. As the words left my mouth, I could feel the weight of my own bitterness wrapping around me, suffocating but somehow freeing my thoughts. I had practiced this confrontation so many times, rehearsing every line, every insult in my mind until they were like daggers, ready to pierce the very heart of the man who had wronged me. He looked at me with a mixture of sadness and anger, his jaw tightening. You don't understand what pressure I was under. It was eating me alive. You chose to drown it in alcohol instead of reaching out to your family. Do you even understand how that felt? I felt abandoned. Clara, I was scared. I was lost. Everyone thought I could handle it. They made me the bad guy when I just didn't know what to do. Stop making excuses, I shouted, my emotions boiling over. Your problems were never my fault, and you can't blame everyone else for your choices. He flinched at my words, but for the first time, something changed in his expression. I just wanted you to have a better life, to not be burdened by me and my failures, he said softly, almost as if he believed it. A better life? I echoed, the disbelief thick in my voice. You think pretending I had a normal father made my life better? You think I wanted to grow up wondering what I did wrong to make you leave? I didn't mean to hurt you, Clara. I thought I was being a good father by leaving. Good fathers don't disappear, I said, my voice dropping momentarily as a surge of sadness forced its way through my anger. Good fathers stay. The room felt heavy as the silence stretched between us, the silence filled with everything that had been left unsaid for years. I could feel tears pricking at my eyes, but I quickly brushed them away, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of seeing my vulnerability. I'm done being angry. I just want you to understand how much you lost by walking away. And I want to make it right, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I can't change the past, but I can try to make things better now. Can't we start over? Start over? I repeated incredulously. As if it is that easy, you can't just erase the damage you have caused with a few words. I know that, I am trying, Clara. But what do you even want from me? I asked, my voice wavering. Do you want me to forgive you, to pretend it never happened? I don't expect you to forgive me, he replied, his tone softening. I just want the chance to show you that I can be better. Can we take small steps together? Can we rebuild? I felt a glimmer of hope fizzling deep within me, but it was drowned out by the storm of anger and sorrow. And what if I say no? What then? Then I have to accept your decision, he said quietly, looking down at his hands, which were trembling slightly. Maybe it was my stubbornness, or maybe it was the ache of longing buried deep inside me that whispered for understanding, but I found myself staring at him. I do not know if I am ready for this. I have built entire walls around my heart to protect it, and you are the last person I ever thought would break through them. I understand. All I can do is show up and hope you will give me a chance, he said, his voice earnest. I want to be in your life again, even if it takes time. Can you at least let me try? As I sat, torn between my feelings of hurt and the dark pull toward healing, I realized that this was not merely about my father's redemption, but about my own. I glanced around the room, taking in the ghostly echoes of our past, and for the first time in a long time, thought about what moving forward could actually look like. We can take small steps, but I am not making any promises. He nodded, tears shimmering in his eyes like dewdrops in the early morning sun. That's all I ask for. Thank you, Clara. With those words hanging in the air, I felt a mix of bitterness and hope swirling within me. I had no idea if this path would lead to healing, or if it would simply renew the wounds buried deep inside my heart. In that moment, I knew that our stories were far from over and that somewhere between love and resentment, we had the possibility of a second chance. The road ahead would not be easy, but as he stood there, vulnerability pouring out of him, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I could learn to take steps forward alongside the man I once thought was lost forever. The fog settled thick over Maplewood, curling around the old oak trees like a forgotten memory. I could feel it crawling up my spine, the cold merging with the heat of my simmering anger, reminding me why I was still here, why I had to see this through. I leaned against the cool brick of the building that used to house Becker's Grill, the dim light casting small shadows across my face. I had a plan, but it was one I needed to be careful with. I took a deep breath, letting the familiar scents of the earth and damp wood invigorate my senses. It was a reminder of the life I once knew before betrayal took root like the weeds in the cracks of the old sidewalk. "Clara," came a soft voice, pulling my focus from the past. I turned to see my friend Daisy, her blonde locks glistening under the feeble glow of a street lamp. "You all right? You look a little frazzled." "I'm fine, Daisy," I replied, forcing a smile, though I could see the disbelief in her eyes. "You know me, always keeping it together." She stepped closer, her concern deepening. "You don't look fine, you look intense, like you mean business." I laughed a little too loudly, the sound echoing off the brick. "You know me, I mean business all the time." "What business are we talking about?" Daisy pressed, arms crossing her chest. Even after all these years, I could see the protective glint in her eyes. She was always my first line of defense when the world felt too heavy. "It's complicated," I said, my heart racing as a memory of Thomas, my ex-boss, drifted into my mind. The way he had smiled at me just before he stabbed me in the back, all while pretending to be my ally. "Complicated how?" Daisy persisted, her voice low and serious. I looked into her eyes, her blue irises sparkling with genuine concern, making me hesitate. "I promise it's nothing I cannot handle, I just need to tie up some loose ends." "Involving Thomas?" She had figured it out, and I felt a twinge of guilt. "Maybe," I admitted slowly, my fingers absently twisting a stray strand of hair. "You know he hurt you, right? He treated you like a disposable paper cup." Daisy's voice was firm, her expression filled with determination. "No one deserves that." "Trust me, I know." I couldn't help the bitterness that crept into my words. "But this isn't just about hurt feelings. He needs to see that every action has consequences." "Clara, you shouldn't." "Shouldn't what? Stand up for myself?" My voice was louder than intended, and I quickly glanced around to see if anyone had overheard. Several people passed by, oblivious to our conversation. "I cannot just let this go." I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I am finally regaining control over my life. Control or revenge? Daisy's question hung in the air, heavy and poignant. I sighed. The line between the two had blurred so much I wasn't even sure what I was pursuing anymore. "Maybe both," I offered weakly. "What do you want, Clara?" Daisy pressed. "Really?" I closed my eyes for a moment and pictured that day in the office when Thomas had smiled at me. He had manipulated my trust, made me feel safe while plotting my downfall. I want him to feel that drop in his gut every time he harms someone. I want him to doubt himself the way he made me. "What do you plan to do?" Her voice softened, but the edge was still there, her concern evident. I straightened up, feeling the weight of my resolve settle in my chest. "I'm going to confront him, face to face." The intensity of my own words surprised me, but I needed to face him. I detailed my plan internally, the steps of drawing him into a trap where all of his arrogance would finally come crashing down on him. "That's risky," she stated, caution spilled across her features. "Have you thought about what could happen?" "Yeah, I have." I laughed again, this time without the forced quality. "If I don't do this, I'll always wonder what could have happened. I refuse to let him take my power, my voice, my sanity any longer." Daisy studied my face, her brow furrowed. "Okay. But promise me you will be careful." Her words hung between us. "I promise," I replied, though the truth was that I did not fully believe it. I turned my gaze back to the street where cars whizzed by, unaware of my storm brewing in the quiet corners of my mind. "Let me help you," she offered finally, her voice deflated but hopeful. "I'll be your lookout." "You've got a job, Daisy. Friendship is a job, you do the same for me." She was right, of course. "Yes, you're right," I conceded, a wave of warmth washing over me at her unwavering support. "I just don't want to put you in danger. PSSH, I can take care of myself, it's you I worry about." And that was the beauty of our friendship. She was just as fierce as she was loving. "We're doing this together," I asserted, feeling a flicker of hope for the unfolding plan. "Just promise me you will stay safe." "I promise," I echoed and felt the weight of the moment settle around us like a cloak. I had not felt hope in such a long time. Perhaps this was where a spark of light could emerge from the darkness Thomas had put me through. The darkness melted away slightly, leaving a glimmer of excitement. "Tomorrow, I'll talk to him," I said, my feet shifting nervously on the ground. "You sure you want to do this? You can still back out. I won't hold it against you." I shook my head. "You've seen how he treats people, Daisy. And while he seems so combined and infallible, he's really just a counterfeit emperor in his own mind." Daisy smiled, and I could see the relief flooding her face. "So, what's the plan?" "I was thinking I would meet him at the park, you know, where we used to hang out." "You mean where he threw you under the bus?" she said bitterly, her expression darkening. "Exactly," I nodded. "Gather up my courage and all that. This time I won't be falling for his charm." She bit her lip, looking uncertain. "Just be careful out there, okay?" I felt a rush of gratitude, a reminder that while Thomas had knocked me down, I was very much not alone. It felt good talking to someone who understood my pain and frustration, even if she didn't fully understand the depths of my wrath against Thomas. I will. I think tomorrow will be the beginning of me regaining my power, I said firmly, feeling it rise in my chest. Daisy clapped a hand on my shoulder. Then I will be there with you, in spirit if nothing else. Good. I could use a cheerleader. I gave her a weak smile, which she returned tenfold. We exchanged a few more words before she finally turned to leave, her silhouette disappearing into the shroud of fog. The darkness around me felt comforting, wrapping around me like an old, worn-out blanket. I clenched my fingers into fists, my resolve solidified. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would stand before Thomas Becker, and finally, I would let him know exactly what it meant to betray me. The night air was thick with anticipation, filled with the promise of revenge and the joy of reclaiming what had been lost. With each tick of the clock, the feeling wrapped around my heart, and I could not help but smile. I stood at the edge of the Maplewood Park under a canopy of autumn leaves painted in shades of crimson and gold. A chill lingered in the air, the early signs of winter creeping in, as I took a deep breath, letting the crispness fill my lungs, telling myself this was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when I would finally confront Caleb Morrison. It felt like a whirlwind of emotions swirled inside me, anxious energy mixed with a determination so fierce it sent shivers down my spine. My heartbeat pulsed in my ears, drowning out the laughter of children playing nearby, the sound of dogs barking in the distance, the rustling of leaves underfoot. Everything faded except for the singular goal: revenge. Clara. I heard a voice call out, cutting through my brewing thoughts. I turned, and there he was, Caleb, standing a few feet away, a familiar face from a past I had hoped to forget. He looked almost the same, with disheveled hair messy like he rolled out of bed, but there was something in his eyes, a carefree arrogance that made my stomach twist. "You came," he said, his tone casual, as if we were meeting for coffee and not a confrontation that could change everything. "Of course I did," I replied, folding my arms over my chest, a protective barrier against the memories flooding my brain. "I wanted to talk, Caleb. Talk, that's a bit surprising." He chuckled, a note of amusement dancing on his lips, but I could see a flicker of worry in his eyes. It thrilled me. I took a step closer, allowing the tension to thicken between us. "Do you remember what happened 2 years ago?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart raced like a runaway train. "That night at the charity gala, the way you betrayed me," he shifted uncomfortably, the confident smirk sliding from his face. "Come on, Clara, that was a long time ago. Can't we just move on?" "Move on? You expect me to just forget how you sold me out?" My words hung in the air like heavy smoke. "You made me the laughingstock of everyone, Caleb. You took everything I worked for and threw it away like it meant nothing." "Look, I thought it was all in good fun." "You were getting too much attention," he said dismissively, but I could see his facade cracking. "I didn't think you'd take it so seriously." I took a step closer, feeling the distance between us vanish. "You didn't think?" I spat, letting my fury spill over. "You didn't think about the dreams I had? The projects I poured my heart into? You made a joke out of my hard work. It was not about the attention, it was about respect, something you clearly do not understand." He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off, my voice rising. "How does it feel to be on the other side of the table, Caleb?" I stepped even closer, now just inches apart. "How does it feel to know that everyone you once called friends now sees you for what you really are, a fraud?" His face hardened, and I could sense the walls rising back up around him. "You really think you can just come here and—" "I think I can do whatever I want," I interrupted, fueled by the fire of my anger. "You don't get to dictate how I process what you did to me. You don't get to act like we can brush this under the rug. You hurt me. You ruined my reputation, and now it is time for you to face the consequences." "Seriously, Clara, is this really how you want to spend your afternoon?" His tone turned sarcastic, and I could see the annoyance growing in his posture. "I have a life now, and you need to grow up. Grow up." My voice trembled with rage as I fought back the flood of memories, each one sharper than the last. "You have no idea what I've been through since that night. You turned a room full of allies into enemies overnight. You cost me my job." I said I was sorry, did I? His voice was defensive. "What more do you want?" As I stared into his eyes, I realized that my revenge needed to be more than just words, it needed to be a lesson. "I want you to understand what you did wrong. I want you to feel that regret coursing through your veins." "Right," he scoffed, rolling his eyes. "And I suppose you are going to teach me a lesson?" "Maybe," my jaw clenched. "Maybe I'll show you just what it feels like to be thrown under the bus. You see, Caleb, you thought you could just play with people's lives like they were toys. Well, it is time for you to learn the hard way. A silence fell between us, the weight of my words hanging like a thick fog. Caleb seemed to reconsider, his cocky demeanor wavering as he searched my eyes for something. Clara, this is crazy. You do realize that what you are doing will only make things worse. Worse for you, maybe, I replied with a smirk, my confidence returning. But you are right about one thing. I am not that girl you knew. This is my world now, and in my world, people like you pay the price for their mistakes. He shifted again, trying to regain control of the conversation. If this is some kind of threat, you clearly underestimate me. I leaned in closer, my voice barely above a whisper. I know exactly who you are, and I know the life you've built off of the backs of others. Consider this your warning. You may think you are untouchable, but every tower built on deception eventually crumbles. Caleb's eyes flared with anger, but I could see it, the doubt hidden beneath his bravado, the flicker of panic creeping onto his face. You're just bluffing. You wouldn't dare do anything. Oh, I absolutely would, I said, the thrill of revenge electrifying my tone. Think of this as an opportunity to reflect on what betrayal has cost you. I am not scared of you, and I refuse to be your victim any longer. His expression shifted from anger to something closer to concern, and I reveled in the power shift. I took another step closer, my heart racing, adrenaline coursing through my veins, my mind clear with purpose. Just remember, Caleb, every action has consequences. One way or another, you will pay for what you did. Clara, you truly are insane, he said, shaking his head, uncertainty painting his features. I hope you know what you are getting yourself into. I do, I replied, liberated by my words. And trust me, Caleb, it's going to be tremendous. As I turned to leave, a sense of satisfaction swept over me. I could feel his eyes boring into my back, a mixture of fear and anger swirling together, and it was exactly what I had imagined. Every step away from him felt lighter, each breath easier. I had confronted the darkness he represented, and now it was time for me to embrace the freedom that came with that. Maplewood was forever changed for me, but the real transformation was within. I had taken the first step in rewriting my story, and there was no turning back.